Alright, hi everyone, how's it going? And welcome to another video. Now, it's been a while since I've done a video. The last video I did was a video where I showcased my psychedelic artwork, and the video was very well received. I got a lot of good comments from a lot of people, and I just want to thank everyone for your kind words and all the kind things people said about my paintings. I definitely want to thank you for that, because I had a lot of fun making those paintings. And I'm working on a painting now, and I hope to be able to showcase more paintings in the near future. Now, with that said, I want to do a kind of video that I haven't done in a while, and that would be a movie review. And the movie I'm going to be doing a review on today is the new Quentin Tarantino film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And there will be spoilers in this video, so I'll say that right now. But I did like this film. I liked it quite a bit. And with Quentin Tarantino films, you know, some people will like them, some people won't. I think you have to kind of understand what Quentin Tarantino was really trying to go for with his films. You know, with this movie, it takes place in 1969, and it's very similar to those movies that were coming out at around that time in the late 60s, kind of like Easy Rider, where there's not really a strong concrete plot. It's just kind of like a lot of people sort of hanging out and going on road trips and, you know, that kind of thing. And it's not a real strong plot. So, you know, if you like that kind of film, you would definitely like this. And Quentin Tarantino definitely kept true to that kind of movie. But if you don't know what he was trying to do, you may not understand what this film's all about. Because, yeah, I did hear some people call it a disorganized mess, and I certainly didn't think it was. You know, I thought this was definitely a great film. It had a lot of great dialogue in it. Quentin Tarantino always has really good dialogue in all of his movies. You always get a sense that the conversations these characters are having are conversations that Quentin Tarantino actually had. You know, you always get a sense of that in Tarantino films. But, yeah, and anyways, just like I said, the film takes place in 1969, which was a very transitional time period in our culture. You know, it was definitely a time where things were changing quite a bit, and that's really what this film is about. Because, for example, I could remember, I believe I was watching, I want to say it was like the Dick Cavett Show or something like that. I'm not sure if it was or not, but there were two guys. They were both older guys. One guy was wearing a suit and had like a fedora hat. He had a cigarette in one hand, some kind of a drink in the other hand. And the other guy, the same age as this guy, and was wearing a very like colorful shirt and colorful pants. And he said to the guy wearing the suit, you know, you got to get with the times, man. This is what all the kids are wearing. You know, that's kind of how it was at that time. You know, because it was that transitional time period. And you see that here in this film. Leonardo DiCaprio is in this film, and he plays the character Rick Dalton. And Rick Dalton is, you know, one of those guys who did westerns back in the 50s and early 60s, and now it's the late 60s, and he's having a difficult time transitioning with the times. You know, he's having a very difficult time making that transition because he was doing these westerns, and now that's not really a thing anymore in Hollywood. So in order to continue to do westerns, he has to go to where they're still making westerns, which is Italy. So that's what he does. He goes to Italy, makes some westerns. You know, they were making spaghetti westerns in Italy at that time, which were, you know, a bit different than the American westerns, in that they tended to be more surreal. But anyways, he makes these westerns, and then, you know, he comes back, and, you know, also hangs out with his stuntman friend, played by Brad Pitt, a character by the name of Cliff Booth. And Cliff Booth, like I said, he's a stuntman. And supposedly this was modeled after the real friendship between Burt Reynolds and a friend that he had that was also a stuntman. I guess that's what Quentin Tarantino based this on. So, anyways, they're just kind of hanging out, these two guys, and there's a scene, and this is a scene that's been talked about quite a bit, where the characters are on the set of the Green Hornet, and Bruce Lee is there. And Bruce Lee is talking to this Brad Pitt character, and he's basically talking about, how he could easily beat Cassius Clay, who's, Muhammad Ali, if they had a match, and all that, and just kind of acting arrogant. Now, this did catch some controversy. I know Shannon Lee, the daughter of Bruce Lee, did complain about this because she didn't like the way Bruce Lee was portrayed. That she felt he came off kind of arrogant. And yeah, it seemed like he did. Now, Quentin Tarantino kind of fired back by saying that, well, Bruce Lee did make these claims that he could beat Muhammad Ali. In fact, Linda Lee, his wife, even talks about it in her book, Bruce Lee, the Man I Knew. So, maybe he did make those claims, but still, I did get a sense that, the way Bruce Lee was portrayed, they did come off as kind of arrogant. However, I do know that Quentin Tarantino is a big Bruce Lee fan. I mean, that is obvious. That's why he wanted Bruce Lee to be in this film. But, yeah, so, anyways, a sparring match ensues, and it appears that this Brad Pitt character kind of gets the better of Bruce Lee. Now, originally what was supposed to happen, from what I understand, is supposed to be Brad Pitt was to, beat Bruce Lee very decisively. However, Brad Pitt didn't want that because he didn't want it to really look like he could beat Bruce Lee. So he kind of, from what I understand, kind of rebelled against that a little bit. And they changed it. So, anyway, another interesting point I do want to make about this scene was that it is kind of based in reality, because supposedly what really happened was Bruce Lee supposedly did get into a sparring match with a stuntman on the set of the Green Hornet, a stuntman by the name of Gene LaBelle, or Judo Gene LaBelle as he's sometimes called. He was a guy who had, he had matches. He had a boxer versus grappler match where he beat a boxer by the name of Milo Savage. And then I want to say he even owned a wrestling company. I believe it was in San Francisco. But anyways, they had this sparring match. What exactly happened, I don't know. But whatever happened, Bruce Lee emerged from this sparring match wanting to learn grappling. He suddenly wanted to learn grappling techniques from Gene LaBelle. And Gene LaBelle taught Bruce Lee, some grappling techniques. Bruce Lee wanted to broaden his horizons and, expand his game a bit. So that's what he did. But, yeah, I definitely did want to mention that Bruce Lee scene because, Bruce Lee definitely does kind of interconnect with a lot of what goes on in this film. There's another thing I want to talk about was a scene where Brad Pitt picks up a woman and takes her to the Spahn Ranch, which is where the Manson family lived. She was a member of the Manson family, apparently. Now, this is based in reality because what actually happened was the drummer for the Beach Boys, Dennis Wilson, had picked up a hitchhiker who happened to be a member of the Manson family, and he brought her back to his house where she hung out. I guess he had a lot of people, like groupies or hangers-on, as they called them, kind of hanging around his house. And supposedly Dennis Wilson then went into the recording studio with the Beach Boys and came back at 3 in the morning, rang the doorbell of his house, and as the story goes, Charles Manson answered the door. And they kind of talked for a bit. They supposedly hit it off pretty well, and they decided to write a song together. And the Beach Boys, from what I understand, recorded the song right away. And Charles Manson didn't like it because they had changed his lyrics. He didn't like the fact that some of the lyrics were changed. He could be very obsessive about those kinds of things. And I guess, he wanted to kill Dennis Wilson, from what I understand. And he confronted him, and from what I understand, a scuffle had ensued, and I believe, Dennis Wilson had won that scuffle because of the Beach Boys. Dennis Wilson was supposedly the one you didn't want to mess with. But, anyways, getting back to what had happened, there was, that incident, and there was also, I mentioned the Manson family at Spahn Ranch. This Brad Pitt character goes to the Spahn Ranch to meet the owner. The owner's played by Bruce Dern in this film. And he goes to see the owner. Supposedly that really happened. Charles Manson said that one day a stuntman did show up at the Spahn Ranch looking to meet with the owner, who he had known, years before. So supposedly that did happen. So even though a lot of these stories are not true, they are based in fact. There's certain aspects to them that were partially true. Now, Charles Manson himself isn't really in this film that much. I would say maybe about 5 minutes, or maybe about, maybe 20, 30 seconds, if even that. So it's a very brief part that he has. But, yeah, the movie, like I said, continues with, a lot of hanging out. Some people find this movie to be boring, but I really didn't. It was the kind of movie where I wasn't sure what I thought of it immediately after I saw it. I went home, and then when I woke up in the morning, I thought of the movie again, and I thought how much I really liked it. I really liked this film. Now, this film does have a very violent ending. You have a lot of those very violent endings in Tarantino films. This movie's no exception to that. However, not a whole lot of action going on. It's just this real violent scene at the end. And what happens is the Manson family of Tex Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, Susan Atkins, and the driver Linda Kasabian go to the Sharon Tate house, and rather than go to her house, they decide first that they're going to go to the house next door. Well, the house next door is the house where, the Leonardo DiCaprio character, Rick Dalton, and his friend Cliff Booth are staying. So they decide that because these guys had made movies that had killing in it, that they had taught them how to kill, so now they were going to go after them. So they then, I believe, try to break in, or maybe they just knock on the door. Anyway, they get into the house, and a huge fight ensues, and there's a pit bull involved, and a lot of fighting, and then even the Leonardo DiCaprio character uses a flamethrower on Susan Atkins. So, yeah, it's a very violent scene. But, like I said, though, the whole movie isn't violent. It's just that real violent scene. But, yeah, all in all, I really did like this film a lot. I mean, I could have gone for another 2 more hours of this kind of hanging out kind of stuff. Because I just thought it was kind of an interesting film. I like how they really made it look like 1969, with the clothes and the cars and all that. And, if you know about Quentin Tarantino, you know that he doesn't use a lot of CGI in his movies, if any. He might have used a little, I'm not sure. But I know Quentin Tarantino does not like CGI, and I could understand that. I mean, I think a lot of movies now are kind of ruined because of the overuse of CGI. I mean, you look at some of these movies, how much they use the CGI. It's just overdone. I mean, there are movies like Jurassic Park and Terminator 2 that didn't have a lot of CGI. The CGI looked great. It wasn't overused. But now you have a lot more people using CGI who don't know how to use it right. A lot of scenes look kind of cartoonish and rubbery, and it doesn't even look like a real object a lot of the time. But, yeah, Quentin Tarantino really doesn't use much CGI, if any, well, like I said. But, yeah, another interesting thing that I did want to add about this film is the fact that a lot of these characters are really kind of interconnected, if you think about it. For example, Bruce Lee was actually teaching Sharon Tate Kung Fu, which she was going to, use and utilize in her upcoming movie, The Wrecking Crew. And supposedly what had happened was, after the murders had happened, Roman Polanski actually blamed it on Bruce Lee because Bruce Lee had left some glasses behind when he was there at one point. And he left his glasses behind, so Roman Polanski thought Bruce Lee might have done it. Well, it quickly became obvious that Bruce Lee did not commit the murders. But initially, Roman Polanski thought he might have. But, yeah, another thing, Jay Sebring, who was murdered in these murders, was actually, he was actually the one who discovered Bruce Lee. He discovered Bruce Lee at the Ed Parker Long Beach Karate Tournament, where Bruce Lee was giving a demonstration, saw Bruce Lee, thought he would be perfect for the Kato character in The Green Hornet, and he ended up basically helping to launch Bruce Lee's acting career. So, thought I'd mention that, because, yeah, a lot of these characters are kind of interconnected. I don't know if that's how Hollywood really was at that time. Kind of would like to think that it was. But you do, again, get that sense that Hollywood's undergoing this transition. There's even a scene where this producer guy tells the Leonardo DiCaprio character that, you should get, like, a new hairstyle. Maybe get one of those, like, hippie hairstyles. And this Leonardo DiCaprio character, Rick Dalton, doesn't really want to do that. That's not something he wants to do. So, yeah, you see that, things were changing a lot. All in all, I really like this film a lot. I have a feeling it's probably going to get Best Picture. I mean, I know it's done pretty well at the box office, from what I've understand. I believe it's made around $300 million, and, it's done the best out of any original film this summer, because a lot of the films that have come out have been reboots, or they've been sequels or prequels. So, yeah, this is definitely the highest grossing original film that's come out this year. And, yeah, great movie. I highly recommend it. I think, a lot of people would like it. It's been pretty well received as a whole. If you like, Quentin Tarantino movies in general, I think you would definitely like this one. I mean, in my personal opinion, I think this is the second best Quentin Tarantino film. I would only put Kill Bill ahead of this movie. But, yeah, that's all I've got. If you've watched this video, as always, I thank you for watching. Have a great night.